In the year 1880, justice delivered in the American West can be brutal and swift. It couldn't come fast enough, however, for the likes of Joe Caswell. His future comes at the end of a rope. That means he's almost out of time, literally. This episode about escape, second chances undeserved, and the proverb, a life for a life, was written by Rod Serling and directed by David Orrick McDearmon. As always, the alternative theories mentioned within may cause anxiety, rage, and disbelief. But that's why you're here, I hope. And kindly consider leaving a like, share, or subscribe if you enjoy this content. Now, arrive early and make it to the front row. It's time for execution. It's the year 1880, where very bad men do very evil deeds too easily. For a man like Joe Caswell, justice comes late, too late. Caswell is a man no one likes. He may not even like himself. With a high number of victims behind him, Caswell shares his jury's impatience. As the noose tightens and the rope drops, Caswell's body disappears. He is swept out of the Wild West and reappears in 1960, thanks to a time machine built by the professor, Professor Manion. After studying his subject a short time, Manion becomes less proud of his scientific achievement and more concerned about what kind of monster Caswell is. With the rope burns around Caswell's neck, it's apparent that great leaps of science come with a sense of irony or just plain bad luck. Caswell confesses he's murdered over 20 men and shows no remorse with it. The upfront and pragmatic professor foolishly shares his plan to send Caswell back to the past. Living on borrowed time, Caswell fights for his immediate future. He attacks and kills the professor. A new century, a new victim. Caswell, relying on his primitive instincts, flees to the city street and sees a new world of lights, noise, and horseless carriages. While a contemporary saloon offers Caswell comfort, he is unable to understand a jukebox playing music or a television teasing him with a western. What a terrible coincidence. Caswell can only understand and deal out brutality, and hurries back to the lab where he asks Manion's dead body for help. Pleading salvation from a dead man, Caswell gets the reply he deserved. Meanwhile, a thief named Johnson sneaks inside Manion's lab, surprised to see it occupied after hours, late at night. What a terrible coincidence. Caswell confronts Johnson, but there is no honor among thieves, and Caswell falls victim, strangled to death, with a cord from window curtains. Oh, the irony. Thrilled with his kill and having the entire place all to himself, with neat gadgets abound, Johnson foolishly activates and steps inside the time machine. Johnson is sent to 1880, taking Caswell's place in the rope. To everyone's horror, they wonder who is the strange man wearing such strange clothes. The contemporaries of the time wonder if this was the devil's work, or did they just execute an innocent man. The body of future man will be buried deep in an unmarked grave and never spoken of again, lost to time. Execution carries many themes and tropes. A western, time travel, comeuppance, and sweet, sweet irony. It's also a fish out of water story. Time-traveling protagonists, in their very nature, are living a fish out of water experience. Fish out of water is generally seen in comedies, but not always. What most such stories have in common are its heroes' struggle with their new environment. Mick Dundee in New York, John Book in an Amish community, Marty McFly in 1950s Hill Valley. And later, these heroes leverage their homespun knowledge to their advantage. Mick Dundee and his knife. John Book gives a rather non-Amish response to being bullied. Marty McFly gives a 1980s rock performance. Execution is a tale told through the eyes of Caswell. In very short dialogue, we learn where he is, who he is, his past before propelling into his literal future. He's a man of his time. When he transports to the year 1960, we see him struggle with 1960 technology. But do we get to see him cope using his 1880s wits? Sort of. It's not knowledge nor skill, but primitive violence Caswell resorts to. He puts an end to Manion's plan to send him back to the past. Caswell tries to subdue Johnson by stripping him of his gun. Unlike the aforementioned examples, it comes with no humorous payoff. Even with Crocodile Dundee or Witness, it attempted to bring levity to an otherwise violent situation if it were to happen in real life. Perhaps this is why the episode is remembered with little fanfare, partly because Caswell doesn't give the audience a satisfying return on his time travels. The thief, Rod Serling named Paul Johnson only in the closing narration, is Caswell's 1960s mirror image of himself, immoral and ready to kill. There is a quick passage Manion gives describing Caswell as a primitive. Of course, it comes with a bit of irony, how the jungle of 1960s has its own garden variety of primitives. Different century, same evils of man. They do have one difference if you can catch it. Johnson's fate is solely blamed on him and his foolishness touching things he could not understand. He activated the time machine and stepped inside his death chamber. Caswell, while tempted, doesn't touch the professor's equipment when he walks into Manion's laboratory. While it doesn't save him, it shows even a man of the 60s can be dangerously uncomfortable with futuristic technology. Execution is a story about justice served, although long overdue. Caswell's day of reckoning was overdue at the beginning of the episode. You can sense the anxiousness in the justice givers to get it over and done with. If you choose to see it through Caswell's eyes, he was granted a few extra hours, or even 80 years through Manion's point of view. Then comes the fate of Paul Johnson. His justice was swift, which takes us to a very cautious line.
Did we hang an innocent man then?
Did they execute an innocent man? Joe Caswell was given many chances, over 20 for sure, given one last opportunity for reform before that was taken away at first sight. Paul Johnson was given none. Unlike Caswell, had no due process. No judge, no jury, only execution. A man presumed innocent before found guilty. In a paradoxical joke, sentenced to death before he was born. I have nostalgic memories of this episode. Russell Johnson, who played Professor Manion, I knew him first as the Professor from Gilligan's Island, and I was crushed to see him killed off. I'm a sucker for Twilight Zone episodes that are time travel stories or were Western themed. Execution has both. However, if you read The Twilight Zone Companion by Mark Zickery, you will learn there weren't many nice things written about execution, and was considered one of Serling's lesser efforts. The episode does come across as flat, and just maybe we wanted to see more out of Caswell. A fish out of water story turns into an office fight. It didn't seem right that he lost out to a frail-looking city slicker, but we can blame it on his weathered condition. I don't know what time machines are supposed to look like, but the episode's pentagonal trapezohedron machine looks strangely similar to a rarely seen Scooby-Doo episode from 1977. Maybe there's a mathematical explanation only a professor would know. I give Execution 2 dimensions out of 5. It does have a couple tropes. Tag them Western and time travel. This is Mr. G of Synergy leaving you with these final words. Justice comes to those who wait. Never truer than in the Twilight Zone. Check out other videos on the channel. Thanks for watching.